Sports card That's not right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode. Still doesn't feel right. Alright, third time's a charm. What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. Today we're going to look at sports cards lessons that I learned and going to apply those things, or not apply those things, going forward into the next year. What did I learn? What can maybe help you guys out? Stick around and find out. 2020 is approaching its end. I'm sure a lot of you guys are very thankful for that. Some say it's been the worst year of their lives. Others have said this has been the best year of their lives. But no matter which side of the fence you're on, the one thing that everybody can agree on, this has been probably the craziest year in the hobby across the board ever. We saw everything from record-breaking sales to shady tactics by sellers to market crashes. Had empty promises by grading companies, and the retail space in the hobby turning into a complete wasteland while also kind of looking like a soup kitchen at the same time. 2020 was wild. Many people want to focus on the negative aspects of 2020, which I get it, but I think there's a lot that we can learn and not only apply to the hobby going forward, but also apply to our own lives going forward. After all, a great way to get better at anything is if you try, you fail, and you get back up and just keep trying. So I wanted to go over some lessons I learned in the hobby in 2020, applying it to the future, and hopefully help all of you guys out as well. Well, I'm sure a vast amount of people that entered the hobby, re-entered the hobby, still in the hobby this year in 2020. I think most people are collectors at heart, or if they're not collectors, they at least have an appreciation for the cards they used to collect. If they're modern, they look cool. But there was a lot of people who just came in to make a quick buck, not knowing anything about this stuff. Honestly, I can't blame either side on this. We all want to make money, just in general, and a lot of us like these little pieces of cardboard with our favorite characters or players on them. When we buy them, we really don't want them going down in value, so I get it from both sides. It seemed like everywhere you looked, there was posts about other segments within the hobby heating up, on fire, buy these now. And while it's been around for a little bit, breaking exploded in 2020. People waiting in lines at retail to get their hands on sealed product, only to sell it to breakers or just put it online to flip for 3 times their money. Grading companies and other third-party providers being way underprepared. Content creators coming out of the woodwork with their expert card picks. Hey, subscribe to this, buy this, pay this, get my software, get my card picks. I guess I could include myself into this category a little bit. However, I'm never charging for any of that stuff, and I don't necessarily give picks. I just tell you my reasoning behind what I like and what I buy. Unless you're in fact buying something from my eBay store, which, quick plug, if you want to buy something from eBay Mercari, check out my cards or sport lots. Links down below in the description. But what's the common thread between all the things I just talked about? Money. Now more than ever, even before these cards are going to put your kids through college phase in the 80s and 90s. Now more than ever, tons of money involved. Major businesses, corporations, investors coming in to buy these high-end cards. These are now looked at as investments more than ever. While I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that at all, in fact, I actually enjoy kind of looking at it from that perspective, I think you just need to be careful, and this is where I want to get into one of the first things, lessons, if you will, is profits and losses within the hobby. Nobody's getting into this hobby to lose money at all, but sometimes I think losses are actually gains in that you gain an education on what not to do in the future. I think too many times people get wrapped up in buying and selling, and what I mean is, when's the best time to buy this card? When's the best time to sell this card? If I'm not going to be able to get 5 to 10x on this card on an ROI, it's just not worth my time. People get too wrapped up in that stuff. And while I see the logic in it, here are some things that I think you could apply that would kind of reduce the stress and reduce the worry of that and just have more fun. First, I want to talk about profits. Simply put, take your profit, whatever it is, put it back in the hobby, keep going. Don't worry about what you're going to lose or make in the future, just take it and go. A good rule for me is, hey, if your ROI on a card is outperforming the average on the S&P 500, you should just take it and go. If that means 30% ROI, great. If that means 1,000, even better. Chances are most people in the hobby that are selling the cards are actually just putting that money into more cards. By doing this, you're not really losing. Regardless of your ROI, you're just building and building into bigger cards. 2 personal examples I can give you right off the bat is In 2019, I had a Giannis Select PSA 10 rookie card, and I had a lower grade, like real low, don't remember what it was off the time, it was probably below 5, first edition Charizard. At the time, I just really wasn't attached to either card. I didn't really want them for some reason. I didn't have the foresight, fully admit that. I just wanted to move them. I was able to sell them off of what I bought with a 20 to 30% ROI, so, I'll take it and move on. And looking back at that now, I've missed out on some huge gains. But what did I do with that money? Left it in PayPal, waited and waited and waited, and then just put it into more cards, into better cards that I liked more than those in the first place. One thing I did, and I still like to do, is I would buy out collections. I would buy thousands of cards for fractions of pennies, flip those for $1 or so on ComC, Sport Lots, or eBay, profit that way. Yeah, it's a 50 cents here, $1 here, but when you add that up over thousands of cards, it adds up. I bought lots of vintage wrestling, still buying vintage wrestling. That stuff skyrocketed, so that's worked out in my favor. And as I sit here today, by doing this method, I own some cards that I never even knew existed, and I personally never thought I would ever own based on how much I had to pay for them. And some may think, well, this is not the biggest cards, a Hogan rookie in a low grade. That's nothing compared to like Topps Chrome Refractor LeBron rookie. I get that, but again, I started in the hobby with like $10. I've been collecting all my life, but I didn't want to spend any of my own personal money on the hobby. I just worked within the hobby, flipping things and building the collection. And all of this stuff, all of my work, all the collection, it all boils down to two things: hard work, persistence, and I guess a third, keeping your money within the hobby. Sell a card, save it, buy another card. Keep going, keep building, keep reinvesting. Now let's talk about what nobody wants to talk about, and that's losses. I learned early on, if you make a pick, no matter what sport that's in, no matter what card that is, and that pick doesn't work out in the time frame you expect, you can either hold on to it or just cut bait and move on and not worry about it. I stated in earlier videos in mail days and some other stuff, which you can go back and check out, stated that I did a little speculating in 2020 with some basketball and some baseball and of course football. I would say for the most part it all worked out okay. I probably sold off 90% of the basketball stuff and made a good amount of margins there. Again, if you're selling basketball in 2020 and you're not making money, you're clearly doing something wrong. I also made some massive gains on vintage wrestling, which I'm still holding on to because wrestling's my thing, clearly. But I took my fair share of losses on some things. I'm not afraid to admit it. And again, go back and check out those mail day videos or some other videos where I was talking about things that I was buying and hoping they would flip later on. I put my money where my mouth is, and it's all on tape, so go check it out. I was one of the many who thought that skill positions in the NFL this year were going to be the new fantasy football. People are going to be flipping and trading these each week just like they would the waiver wire in fantasy football. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong about almost everything in the NFL this year. I did do okay overall. Like I said, I didn't really take a lot of huge losses this year. Maybe my Marquise Brown and some of my Terry McLaurin didn't work out, but my DK Metcalf more than made up for that. Maybe my Daniel Jones picks didn't really pan out very well, but I sold a lot of Drew Lock, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson to make up for that. I was a big Kyler Murray fan, sold a few of his cards and made some money on that, but what's weird about the NFL this year is like he's performing just as we expected, and his cards are going down. It's almost like the football market preseason leading up to the season was hot, and then performance started happening, whether it was good or bad, and the whole market just tanked. I stated that the NFL had just been weird, regardless of my wins and losses in cards. I didn't play fantasy this year because of virus purposes, and it was just a weird year for me. I really started losing interest. I also swung and missed, pun intended, with a lot of baseball this year. Things just didn't take off like I thought they would with the cards that I selected, and that's fine. It's a learning process. I'm perfectly fine with hanging on to some of these cards I bought because I would not have bought them in the first place if it was going to put me in a financial bind. So I can sit on these cards, wait for them to go up in value, sell them then, or I could just put them on eBay for 99 cents, let them fly, whatever they end up is what they end up, take that, move on. And you can think of it this way. You lose money on a card pick, you lose money on sets of cards, whatever it is you're losing money on. Look at it as if you paid for the education of what not to do in the future. Another trend I saw in 2020 was people jumping into cards and markets that they don't know anything about. Now, I'm not talking about throwing a couple bucks, $5 or less, on some random rookies you think may pan out, a bunch of different rookies you think may pan out, or investing in that rookie or that veteran on your favorite team because you think that value is going to go up, but you also just love the player, you love your team. Or maybe it's the character, maybe it's the wrestler, maybe it's the comic book character if you're buying Marvel cards, Pokemon, of course. Some of those, if you're collecting because you like those things, that's what this hobby is all about in the first place. I'm mainly talking about these strictly investor type people jumping into these markets with no knowledge, no hours of research, and they really don't care about what they're buying. They're just trying to make the money on it. We saw this across the entire hobby. People jumping into these markets, throwing thousands of dollars at things they don't really know about just because some Instagram influencer or investor said they should buy it. Or, in full transparency, I do this from time to time. Sometimes I will buy cards that I have no attachment to, and I'm just looking at it as an arbitrage opportunity. The difference with me is that I do the research before I make the purchase. I look at comps. I look at the player or the character within the world of the hobby. Is this a flash in the pan? Is this a legend? And more importantly, actually, than all of that is I have a very strict price point. I'm only going to spend X amount on certain cards. If it's $1 over that, forget it, I'm out. I'm not one of the guys that will go out and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on prospect-based Prism PSA 10s, on RPAs. I know we've got a bunch of investor, influencer, market software guys that tell you to go out and do these things. That's not me. That's not what I'm doing when it comes to speculation. I may throw 10, 20 bucks on a higher end, like numbered card or a refractor or a silver of a prospect. I may throw $20 to $25 on 10 different prospect cards. That's one thing. But I use this logic because let's say there's a market crash, or let's say the whole hobby just kind of deflates. Maybe there's an injury on those prospects you bought. Could be a lot of different things. But if you have a specific price point, you're spending below that. You're spending, $1, $2 a card. You could look at these like penny stocks essentially. They're not really going to cost you that much. If you get stuck with them, fine. But they're also not going to cause you to go in debt and break the bank either if they don't pan out. And also, I don't want to have a lot of money tied up in stuff that I just don't really feel an attachment to. Would I spend, hypothetically, a couple $1,000s on modern Prism NBA? No, I wouldn't. Why? I like basketball, but I don't follow the sport like I have followed wrestling. Would I spend thousands of dollars on vintage wrestling cards? You better believe it, brother. Would I be sad if the wrestling cards went down in value? A little bit. I don't like to lose money on anything, but I love wrestling. I love wrestling cards. I know wrestling better than any other sport within the hobby, if you want to call it sports entertainment, whatever. That's what I do. Overall, I can say that this method has worked very well for me over the past few years, probably 3 years. But I say all that to say this. Collect what you love. I know everybody says that, kind of cliche at this point, but guys, it's just the truth. Nobody wants to get stuck holding the bag, so to speak. Nobody wants to have base Prism cards of guys that don't pan out, they can't do anything with, and they spent hundreds or thousands of dollars on these things. I have no problem with speculation within the hobby. It's what drives it, really, especially modern stuff. But I think there's some guidelines you should have. I think you should have a strict budget that you're allowed to spend on these cards. I think you should put in a lot of research into what you're doing instead of just like throwing darts. And I think overall speculation should be a very, very small percentage of your total PC. At least to begin with, and then as you grow into other sports or avenues within the cards, you can maybe build that out a little bit. The more comfortable you get, the more knowledge you have, and the more money you have. Another thing I learned in 2020 is learning to diversify. Wait a minute. Zhan, you just said collect what you love. Yes, exactly. But I also said leave a little bit of room for some speculation. But I also think you should balance out your PC with some solid blue chip cards. And the thing about diversification is you can do all of this within your same lane. If you're into baseball, you can do all of this within baseball. I'm not saying diversify with all these other sports. Sure, you can learn those things, small percentage to branch out so you don't get burned. But stay in your lane to start with and diversify within. And here's what I mean. Hypothetically, let's say you've got $500 to start a collection with. As a wrestling fan, first thing I'll do is go buy like a mid, lower grade Hogan 1985 Topps card. It's an iconic card, rookie card by many is what it's considered. Solid card, not going anywhere value-wise but up. And now it's time to speculate a little bit. Again, within wrestling, let's say I'm a big Aleister Black fan. I do like him. Kind of a penny stock option at this point. We really don't know what his future in WWE is going to be. Maybe he moves on to AEW or goes back to the Indies. So what we start doing is looking at his autos, his serial number cards, parallels, stuff like that. And we start putting small amounts of money in that because we're a fan. There's a rarity scarcity value in those specific kind of cards, and we think that they may go up. So you're speculating within the same lane of the wrestling cards that you already enjoy. So then maybe you're thinking, okay, well, I love wrestling, but right now the wrestling market is not on fire. It's not catching on like Pokemon and basketball. What else could I do to kind of balance this out? So I personally would take the rest of your money and go buy the best LeBron, Jordan, or Kobe cards, specifically if you could find one graded in a higher grade for the rest of the money that you have. Buy that because that thing is never going to go down in value. It's going to supplement kind of your base on your Hogan and your Aleister Black cards, kind of building a small portfolio balancing itself out. As you can see from this example, it's a very balanced, diversified approach, and it's really the way that you want to approach the hobby in general, in my opinion. It has all the aspects of trading cards you want. You got your fan favorites, you got your legends, blue chip stuff, and then you've got your penny stocks in the character that you actually like. And this is what I mean by diversifying, not necessarily putting all of your money in one basket, so to speak. Eggs in basket. Get my sayings mixed up. You're a big Trae Young fan, Luka fan, maybe you're a big Gleyber Torres fan. Pick your athlete, whatever you're into. Like, I personally would not want to only own that player's cards and just keep piling them up. That's a little bit risky for me. Maybe you want to do that with Jordan or LeBron. That's a little bit safer because their careers are kind of past. But some of these younger guys, it's kind of dangerous territory you're dealing with. By doing this diversified approach, you're setting yourself up to not only have a great collection with a variety, but also almost a guaranteed way to steadily make some money along the way. So what are my hobby plans for the new year? First thing I'm going to tell you right now is I am doubling down on wrestling cards. As I stated in this video and earlier videos, I did do some speculations in some different kinds of card markets this year. I did well overall, but honestly, it just wasn't as fun as buying wrestling cards. And sure, wrestling cards aren't as big and popular as the big three, and we'll even throw Pokemon in there. But I've started seeing some sneaky avenues that people are not looking at within wrestling cards that I think I can make some gains on. And if I don't make gains and I get stuck with them, I've got some cool cards. As I said, the wrestling card market hasn't had this meteoric rise like Pokemon or base Prism basketball. But we're seeing a slow, steady build. I think people are slowly starting to respect wrestling cards a little bit more than they did in the past, where they just referred to it as junk. So I'm real bullish on the wrestling card market. I love wrestling cards. That's why I started this channel. Doubling down on wrestling cards 2021. What does the future year have in store for wrestling with cards in this channel? First, I want to thank each and every one of you that's subscribed, liked, and shared this on social media. Cannot thank you enough. This channel would not be where it is. It's a small channel right now. But we're slowly building that wrestling card community as well. I plan on bringing you, in the new year, more great wrestling card content. I'm bringing some people within the hobby on for some great interviews. There's also a wrestling card podcast coming out, so stay tuned for that. I have some great ideas for other videos, such as market analysis just within wrestling, and covering wrestlers' careers and other major wrestling events through the lens of wrestling cards. I also plan to continue sporadically bringing information that will kind of bridge the markets between trading cards, non-sports cards, wrestling cards, Pokemon cards, you name it. I want to bring all of these worlds together and kind of look at the differences and the similarities between all of them and things you can learn within that realm. And ultimately just build this hobby, build this community, collecting and having fun. Because at the end of the day, that's really what this is all about. Thank you guys for a great 2020 on this channel. Can't wait to see you guys in the next year. Click the videos on the screen in the meantime until next year to learn more about wrestling cards. I'll see you in the comments.